30 years, Universal Studios has brought out the nightmare and fears to all that attended the Halloween-inspired event, Halloween Horror Nights. And this year I did attend it again. For the second straight year in a row, I have attended Halloween Horror Nights, and Universal really stepped up their game this year as they created two new original characters, Sinister and Surreal, as both characters have pretty much destroyed the walls of terror, festered beneath the billows of the fog up on the surface. And now they have brought their nightmares and fears to us. And this year, I ain't gonna lie, it was pretty fucking big. But how big could we do this? Why, let's make a video, of course, because that's what I love to do when I do cool stuff like this. I am counting down the top 5 scare zones and the top 10 houses of Halloween Horror Nights 33 at Universal Studios Florida. And this is gonna be big. Buckle up. We got a bumpy ride. But there are some ground rules. For the houses, we're going to be judging the set design, the costume designs, the scenes, layouts, and of course, the scares. But we're not going to judge the scare actors because they're all different in their own way, and they're all perfect in their own way. Now, for the scare zones, the ground rules are as follows. Set designs, costume designs, scares, but the low level of scares because not the houses. And then, of course, the main thing of the scare zones, how well they are in their area. One more ground rule must be covered, obviously, is the vibes and how fun we had. Anyway, let's get to our nightmares and fears and count down the top 5 scare zones and top 10 houses of Halloween Horror Nights 33 at Universal Studios Florida. Roll it, Sinister and Surreal.
Halloween Horror Nights! Welcome to the realms of horror! For 33 years, your screams have been connected with the depths of Universal Studios, weakening the veil between our world and yours. Now, we have emerged from the shadows to spread our hellish grasping ablaze. Where horror lives! Enter plagued by your most disturbing thoughts and the cries of your tortured souls! Venture forth and encounter the terrors that lurk beyond. They wish to inflict mental torment and physical pain! And we are the sinister train and twisting beams of surreal domain. They are the shadows within the form. They will strike unforgiving fear in your hearts. And now, the time for bloodshed has arrived! Night of water belongs to
Now, before we get to the list, I do want to shout out both Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus and the Death Eaters in Diagon Alley, as both were a huge success this year. The Nighttime Spectacular was such a great show, with great tricks, tons of fire, tons of sexy, and of course, the choreograph. The choreography, you get my point. Everything about it. I still love last year's Nightmare Fuel a bit more, as it was a better ending. But this year's Nightmare Fuel was such a killer show that I will need to watch it again and again and again. That's a lot of sexy. Oh god. As for the Death Eaters in Diagon Alley, I had a couple of great interactions with them this year, and they really know how to put on a great show. And also sexy. But yes, I do want to shout them both out as they were a big part of Halloween Horror Nights as well, but we can't really put them in this list. So, yeah, just want to give them both a huge shout out. We're going to start off the list with the Scare Zones. This year's Scare Zones were mostly centered on the two new original characters for Halloween Horror Nights, Sinister and Surreal. These two sisters play on their names in some of the zones, as Sinister centers on pain with torture, and Surreal plays on the pain of psychological. Now, let's start this part off with the list of our first Scare Zone with number 5, Duality of Fear. I think this Scare Zone lacked a bit of what it could truly be. The Scare Zone is supposed to be the sisters group Scare Zone, as they have their own Scare Zones for themselves, which we will cover later on. But I feel like Universal really missed the mark on the Scare Zone, kind of. The costume designs were okay, and quite frankly, without the sisters on top of the HHN platform, I feel like there wasn't much to see because really there was no set design really, and there wasn't much. No offense to the scare actors in this one, as they did a really well job with what they had, but there was no true inspiration to the zone, and the scares were kind of just lackluster for the zone, which isn't really much to contribute because in the end there was no set design, so it's like not much to see. The scare zone makes you pick between visceral horror of Sinister or the unearthly terror of Surreal, and quite frankly, I think this concept wasn't used at all in the scare zone. Quite frankly, I think it could have been done better. Oddfellows scare zone was in this area of the park in the like where you enter the park, where Duality of Fear was, and it was done so much better last year as it had sets and Dr. Oddfellow actually played a huge factor in the scare zone and actually walked around in the scare zone. I had high hopes for the scare zone, but it left me kind of disappointed, and it sucks too because it's like, yeah, they have the chainsaws, and you're like, oh, they could rev up that chainsaw, and next to you, it's just like, there's nothing to see there really. It's just like, oh look, the minions ride, and oh look, the entrance, tribute store, cool. There's nothing to see here. The set design was just kind of lame. Anyway, number 4 is Enter the Blumhouse, which is actually shocking for me to put this low for the 5, obviously, but I was really hyped for this Scare Zone as it was centered on multiple Blumhouse horror films, which includes Megan, The Black Phone, Freaky, Happy Death Day, and The Purge. I was really hoping big things for this Scare Zone, but what I got and what was left was a mid Scare Zone that felt small and not put together so well. I did have great interactions with some characters being used from all 5 films, including the Grabber from the Black Phone and the Blissfield Butcher from Freaky. I had good interactions with those guys, but I just feel like all the characters alone from all 5 films felt kind of crunched together in one small scare zone, and it really didn't have so many scares per se. The sets were cool, but again, it was really small, so you couldn't really feel like you were in each movie. Um, and it felt too squeezed together, and everybody, including myself, wanted to interact with Megan. And I don't think it's a bad thing that Megan was like the huge interaction part throughout the whole scare zone, and she was like the huge factor of it. She was really the center of attention because it's Megan, and she's like iconic in some way. But I just think, so many people were going at her spot that it's like everywhere else was like, who cares? We want to see Megan. I think the next time, or if they ever do another scare zone, Blumhouse should just stick to one film, maybe two, and it'd be easier to tell a story or concept. I think this scare zone honestly would have worked as a house, because they have had a Blumhouse house before, where they put multiple houses together in one, or multiple films in one house, and I just feel like it would have worked better as a house instead of a scare zone because it felt too small, and it felt like too much was going on in a small space that you couldn't really see everything. Plus, there was barely any scare actors in that zone, so I just feel like it kind of was just left to fail anyway. Number 3 is Demon Queens. This scare zone was centered on Surreal, and the four merciless queens. Oh my god, I'm butchering that. The four merciless queens that are loyal to her. The set design and layout was actually done really well here, and I think the costume designs really played off well with the set. I didn't get to see Surreal, but I got to see her disciples. They were really cool looking, and I love some of the sets added into the zone as well. Plus, I truly love how in the dark you can see the purple lighting and get the sense of unearthly terror concept that was added into the zone. I think it kind of felt a bit like last year's Scare Zone Dark Zodiac, but I will give it the benefit of the doubt. It was a pretty decent Scare Zone. I wish I got to see Surreal. I did get to see her in Duality of Fear, kind of, so that's pretty cool. But this was a decent Scare Zone. There's not much to say about it because I mean, like I said, set designs was cool. I like the costume designs. The layout was simple. It was a good Scare Zone. For number two is Swamp of the Undead. This Scare Zone was everything I thought it would be. Zombies from Louisiana causing chaos. The set design looked kind of similar to Jungle of Doom from last year, but I think it works better for this one as it looks very eerie and creepy, especially at night. I do recommend also going to do this Scare Zone in the daytime, evening, afternoon when there's light still in the area because you get to see the set pieces a lot better instead of just going through the fog, which I did technically get to see it in the early day. I just didn't do it. Um, the costumes look spectacular as each zombie feels different from one another. I did go into this a second time and I took my camera out to film and the scare actor's like, perfect, he's recording. Let's scare the piss out of him. And yeah, I kept getting got for like 30 seconds. I was like, bro, we were cool before. What happened? This scare zone is a B-rated horror scare zone that felt straight out of a movie. It might be one of the more underappreciated scare zones in HHN history. I still think it would make more sense to have the scare zone by DreamWorks kind of because swamp, but that's just me nitpicking. It was honestly fine where it was. Honestly, it was the best. That was probably a perfect park to have it near the Universal area like NBC, wherever that area is, wherever Jungle Doom was last year. If you know, you know. But looking back at it, I'm happy. For the scare zone, it was really cool. I love the vibes. Uh, it's weird to see zombies and then walk into the world of trolls. If you go to DreamWorks Land, so that's probably a good thing they didn't have it in DreamWorks. So I really love this fucking scare zone. It was amazing, and also just love zombies. What can I say? But at number one is Torture Fair. I don't know what it is with Universal playing scare zones in the New York area of the park, but for the last 2 years I have attended this event. The best scare zones have been in that area. I mean, it's a huge area, so yeah, I expect it to be the best. Last year it was the Vamps, and this year it's Torture Fair. I love the Renaissance era, but let's add a twist and torture victims and center it around Sinister's character. And you have yourself a brilliant scare zone. I love the character designs for the scare actors in this one as they look straight out of the Renaissance era. But add the horror twist and also the torture twist in the zone, and you just got a perfectly perfect scare zone. The layout and the set designs also looked impressive from the stage, having multiple torture devices and victims to seeing a menacing looking device with a headless person on it. Oh, Jesus Christ, this place is crazy. Uh, Plus, I enjoyed seeing Sinister walk around the scare zone when she wasn't near Duality of Fear. I got to see her twice, and it was awesome. She looks very scary, but also looks perfect for the story that they're trying to tell in the scare zone. It's a great scare zone that I would love to visit every second, maybe even live in and work as a jester. Universal, hey, I know you need scare actors because a lot quit, so hey. Also, spoiler alert, a lot of scare actors quit because, people keep punching them in the face. Anyway, um, hire me next year. I'm down. If somebody punches me, I'm just gonna kick him in the ankle or something. Anyway, this scare zone was amazing. I loved it. Now that we have covered the scare zones, let's finally get to the haunts and talk about the houses. Okay, so this is gonna be a bit awkward, but I didn't do Insidious the Further. And hear me out. There is a very valid reason why. It was not because I didn't have interest in doing it. It's because I was scared to do it because fucking Insidious scared the living shit out of me when I was a fucking teenage boy in 2011 or was it 2012, whatever the fucking film came out. It didn't matter. It scared me, okay? And I did not want to relive the same scary moments in this house. Now, with that said, I will talk about the house because I did watch some videos for this video, and I'm so happy I did not do this fucking house because I would have fucking cried and shit my pants and peed myself and cried and cry again. Every fucking monster and villain and demon in the movies are in this fucking house. You cannot fucking go to any corner in this house without fucking shitting your pants. And the scare actors know that, and they do a fucking fantastic job at doing their fucking job at being scare actors. The set design and layout is also impressive. You enter the house by going through the red door, and once you go through that red door, it's done. There's no going back. You have put your soul onto a fucking check, and you gave that check, and or even a deed. You gave that deed, you gave that check to the scare actors, and they said, "Let's go fuck with you." The red demon in the end, because everyone else is so great. The red demon in the end with Tiptoe Through the Tulips. No, thank you. No, thank you. This house is insane. This house is crazy. It's the best house of the whole event. I didn't do it. I'm sorry. If we could really rank this in like a actuality thing, not just me, myself, and I, it would be number one. But because I did not do the best house of the event, and because I did not do this house, I will be unranking it. So now our top 10 now becomes 9. New intro, please. Now that that is taken care of, number 9 is the Museum Deadly Exhibits. This was one of my more anticipated houses, as I thought it would have the Night Museum vibes in the house mixed with the horror. But in the end, I was actually left quite disappointed, actually. There were some good moments in the house, like a couple of characters dressed in ghillie suits, dressed up as the walls, and I did like the story a bit about an evil exhibit, the rotting stone, escaping from within and destroying everything in its path. The layout was cool. It was okay. But in the end, it just didn't feel like I was in a museum. Maybe an art exhibit, but definitely not a museum. I also felt like most of the costume designs were very just basic. Like they tried to keep it in a safe path with the story and use the stone way too much in the story with the character design. So I just feel like a lot of it was just like, let's keep a safe path and use this stone, this rotting stone, as you will. And let's use this stone as the character pieces, the set designs. And it's just like, I get it. But there's more in a museum than a fucking stone. Let's see some of the pieces come to life. And then we did, but it's just like, it just felt kind of eh. The scares were there too. You know, it got me a couple times, but it wasn't terrible. I will say this none of the houses on here were terrible. But this one was disappointing. And I felt like it could have done a lot more. Quite frankly, if they ever do this again, maybe do this one in Hollywood, do it a little bit more. Do a little bit more where we could see pieces actually come to life. Which it did in here, but it just felt like it was eh. At number 8, I have Major Sweets Candy Factory. This house was inspired by the scare zone centered around Major Sweets back in 2022. I enjoyed this house, but I think it lacked a bit when it came to the character designs, but also the scares. Again, we're not judging the scare actors, but we're judging the scares. And the scare actors did a great job here, and there were some good scares, but other scares just kind of just felt meh. I feel like they tried too hard to play this idea with the kids eating candy and trying to killer kids with candy that they kill with. I feel like this idea and concept could have been better had the layout been a bit better. It's a great story, but I feel like if the house and the layout itself was bigger, I feel like for sure it would have been better. The designs were there. Also, there was a couple of standouts for the character designs. You know, Major Sweets and Miss Treats. They were cool, but felt like everything else was just plastered candy on kids, and now they're killers. This could have been such a better job with the characters' designs, maybe even turning them into candy monsters. That would have been cool. I think there was one character that was like a big giant glob. He looked like a candy monster. He was cool. Um, to me, honestly, what would have worked best would have been just turning them into candy monsters. But it's just a missed opportunity. Everything else about this house was decent, but again, this isn't a terrible house. It's just a bit, unfortunately, disappointing. It's a decent house, yes, but it could have used more. And if you do attend the event and go into the house, make sure you press the two red buttons in this house. You will see why. I don't want to give it away. I pressed one of the two. Something happened, and I guess I missed it. And my sibling was screaming my name. And I'm like, what? I don't know what happened. I was told to press the button. Okay, so push the button, guys, if you want to see like something cool. Number 7, I have Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodline, which is a very iconic house for this year because it's a only female contributed house. So good job for Universal on that to have just a only female house. However, and I'm not saying however because females, they made it, lackluster. This house kind of lacked a bit. And it's not because of the females, it's because of the story, and I feel like pretty much just the story of this. I felt like the story's cool, but it kind of lacked. The daughter of Van Helsing is trying to get back and kill all the monsters that killed her father, but at the same time, these all female monsters are coming after her, and she now has to kill them as well. And it's like there's a lot going on in this, but there's also not enough going on in this house. She's also joined by the Bride of Frankenstein as their allies in this house, but I don't know that until the end. So it's like, how am I supposed to know in these scenes that they're working together? Some stuff that I did like in this house is the set pieces and the set design, the layout, and the costume designs. I thought they were all fantastic, but I hated the ending. The ending of this house, she fucking gets killed, and it just feels like that's not how I want the house to end. We're supposed to follow our hero, and our hero's supposed to live in the end. And in the end, she just dies. And it's just like, it feels a bit unbalanced. So it's just like, what's the point of this whole house? It's a decent house. Some may love it more than others. But for me, it's an okay house. Again, it's not terrible. It was okay. There's something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! This house was not so scary, but it was a really good time for me in this house. The scares were really cool, and I love the house layout. I especially love seeing the villain of the film, Garaka. He's being used heavily in the house, as the Stillwalkers did a great job of making the character seem like he was really there. I also love the puppetry in the house for some of the characters. Although, I don't know if it's a puppet or not, or it's just a guy in a costume. It's like a bit of both. Slimer, he wasn't used in my part of the house. And I believe his character was just not available or being switched at the time. But it didn't ruin the house for me. But it's just like, damn, I wish I would have saw it in person. Now, while the house wasn't scary, it had this campy vibe that made it real easy to go through. I still got by a couple of moments in this house, but it came out of nowhere, which is a good thing. It was a really good house that I feel like would be perfect for any first timers in case they want to ease into the scares that are to come in the next few houses that we will be talking about and that they will be attending. But it also helps to watch the film of said name of the house to understand the events that are going on. So thank God I did that on the plane ride to Universal or to Orlando. Yeah, it was a good fun house. Not a lot of big scares, but at the same time I love the layout, I love the costume designs, and it was a simple house. It was fun. It was campy. It was cool. It's time for the Goblin Feast. To the Goblin Feast, the Goblin Feast. Now, this was a simple and satisfying house for HHN. It wasn't scary like most houses, but it was very campy. It had that campy vibe where the out of nowhere scares happened. And trust me, it will get you because it got me. I had a very funny interactive that I want to share with one of the scare actors. So earlier on in the house, you meet a goblin that's eating a leg, and I asked him, "Can I get a bite?" And the character shook his head no, pointed his finger across his neck, pointed at me, and pointed in the next direction I had to go. And I was like, you know what? Never mind. I'm gonna leave. That was such a great interaction for me, and it's just moments like that that made this house so fucking great. The house design was very simple, but also feels like you're walking into their land. I love some of the set pieces. I love the character designs. I truly loved how, again, it wasn't too scary, but it had its moments. And it would be another easy house to go for, or to go to for any first timers. Honestly, I really enjoyed my entire time in this house, and I felt like the energy and the vibe in the house with scare actors and the setting itself was very positive, and they looked like they were having fun. And that's how I feel like these houses should be. If the scare actors are having fun, you're gonna have fun. Obviously, the other four houses that are above this were slightly better, but I would have ranked it a bit higher had these houses not been a bit better. Um, Either way, I really like this house. It would have gone through the second time. It was a fucking fantastic house, and I feel like not a lot of people appreciate it as much as they should. It was so fun. It was so cool, and it was a great house. It's time to now talk about one of the scariest houses of the night, A Quiet Place. I knew when this house was announced that it was going to be one of the best houses, and sure enough, I was right. It didn't have so many scare actors, but let me be for real. These animatronic creatures were literally scary as fuck and impressive as fuck. Just from the beginning of the house, you enter the house with no noise and darkness. And by the way, if you're going into this house, you have to know right away you're going into a house where they fucking will be quiet and there will be like noises here and there. But the monsters, the creatures in this that will come out of nowhere, they will scare the fucking piss out of you. So you enter in the beginning with no noise and there's darkness, and then poof, a creature pops out to haunt you. That's just a percentage of what is to come in the rest of this house. It's really impressive. The scare actors that are in it do a great job at creating the scenes and making it feel authentic. To the set designs in each part of the house looking just like it's exactly out of the movie. Um, I felt like I was walking into all three films. Plus, not having any background music and just like using a break of glass or um, hearing aid noises come out of nowhere make this house even more scary because it felt authentic. It felt real. It felt like you were stepping into the film. And I love that about the house. I love the use of the animatronics as well as they were in almost every scene or every corner you walked by. Obviously this house had so much in it to make it feel real, and in the end, I'm not going to lie, I could feel my body shaking and heart racing. It didn't help that my sibling almost had a panic attack in the house, but it just shows how intense this house was. It's a very intense house. Do not do it alone, and just be prepared to know that you're going in a house where noise level is a zero. So be ready for that. And also, it was very fucking dark, so be ready for that too. I really loved Triplets of Fear. I feel like this is one of the more underappreciated houses because it felt small, but at the same time it was big. Like it was huge. I love everything about it from it having this vibe of the Texas Chainsaw and the Wyatt family all the way up to, the story of the house as we're seeing the triplets recreating the murders of their family that they have caused they caused when they were 10 years old. And every 10 years, they're recreating these murders, and it's just the characters, they're so amazing. Each character playing the characters did a great job, and the set design made you feel like you were the next victim in these murders. It was very exceptional to be walking in this house and feeling like, am I gonna die or live? You know what I mean? The layout was pretty simple, and the costume designs were too.
but I was expecting them to really look like grotesque by the ending. But I was fine with the end product. The scares, they're in your face, and I like that they're in your face. Even though I was supposed to get scared, I was clapping my hands, screaming happy birthday to each of the triplets as I walked out of the house. This is probably one of the more times I've actually had fun in a house where it's like, I'm used to this type of shit. I watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I watch The Devil's Rejects. I I just love fucked up shit like this. I don't know what it is. I'm the type of guy that can eat food while watching Terrifier movies. But this fucking house was just amazing. You know, I wanted to re-enter the house and pay closer attention to the set designs to see more hidden details I missed after getting scared multiple times. But yeah, amazing house. It was fun. I loved every bit about it. And happy birthday! Out of all of the houses that night, Monstrous, the Monsters of Latin America was my biggest surprise of the night. I was not expecting to love this house as much as I did. The house itself, you know, shows us the three terrifying monsters, which I will butcher even trying to say, so we're gonna try it. Tia Puki, an hour faced witch La Lacusa, and a bone ripping Silba. It was beautiful seeing this house and learning about these Latin America monsters. Automatically when I saw this house, I'm like, oh, they announced this house. It's like, oh, we're gonna see the chupacabra. No, not at all. We saw some very terrifying monsters, and it was such a good house. I love the layout. I love the beginning, seeing like this Grim Reaper type of character. He plays along throughout the house, and I feel like he's a great addition to these houses. I saw the second house, part two of this story in Hollywood, and I'm like, holy shit, I actually want that in Universal Orlando next year. The character designs for these monsters were perfect. Even the animatronic, I want to say it was like a owl or eagle, whatever it fucking was. It was big, it was in your face, and it was huge. I got in this house. There was a point in this house where there's this big ass face of one of the monsters, and it came up at me, and I saw it, and I was just like, bro, what the fuck? It got me. That was probably the biggest like gotcha moment of the night, my biggest scare. Um, Other than that, I loved the story and the concept. I thought the layout was pretty simple, but it was perfect. I loved the set designs. It really made you feel like you were in Latin America and seeing these monsters in person. Well, obviously you were, but it really made you feel like you were in Latin America seeing these person. Or monsters. Yeah, I feel like this house was amazing. I feel like a lot of people love this house. This could be the house of the night next to, what I think was number one and probably Insidious, but we already know what number one is, so let's get on to number one. My obvious choice was Slaughter Cinema 2 the second I went through the house. This house had everything. B-rated horror. I loved every little bits of the house. There was so much detail to what the movies that they were, doing with the scenes, to the character designs, to everything. You had Santa Claus, you had cyborgs, you had zombie clowns, you had a regular clown, you had a motherfucking mummy stripper dancing around. I'm just like, bruh, let's fucking go, bro. This shit was lit. Like literally the first house announced, and you're gonna market this character in this house, the little punk rock guy, on the shirts and whatnot. It's like, yeah, of course it's gonna be one of the best houses of the night. Obviously, Insidious is the scariest and probably one of the best, but everybody knows Slaughter Cinema 2 is by far one of the best houses of the night. I fucking loved every minute of it. It did have some really good intense scares. I feel like obviously the punk rock part was one of my best parts. Words. I kind of also really liked the beginning where I got puked on, kind of, LOL, and then the court gesture guy came out like, "Hello, I'm a clown, haha." There was also a big chompy dude. I think it was supposed to be like a hidden detail for Jaws, but it's like, I loved how this house, really upped the ante from like the original. I've never seen the original. I should probably go into watching it, but it's like it really upped the ante. And I loved in the end, it's like, oh, maybe it'll be a free, so we're gonna show other posters of future possible ideas. So it's like This house was so fucking lit. I loved every minute of it. I felt like I was ready to do it again and again, and I wanted to do it again and again. But there were so many houses we had to do. There was so much stuff that had to be done that we couldn't. Um, yeah, I love Slaughter Cinema 2, and I just thought this is this is literally what a haunted house or Halloween Horror Night should be like. Yes, it had some scary moments and it was campy, but like put both together and you have this beautiful house. Well, that was a long one, and I do apologize for how long it was, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a thumbs up if you did. Comment below and let me know what your favorite houses were, and what, what do you mean we just begun? What do you mean we also did something else while we're in Orlando? Oh, we're not doing our Disney video. Please, oh. Tune in next time we post a video to see another top 10 list centered on Disney rides, but not the rides themselves, the theming. You have been warned. Ah. Take care, everybody.